I'm Nicole Wallace in for Brian Williams. Day 804 of the Trump administration, and there is breaking news tonight from the New York Times. Their stunning report, the first window into how some of Mueller's investigators feel about Attorney General Barr's description of their 22-month endeavor, says some of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigators are frustrated and claim their results are more damaging to the president than what's been revealed thus far. One of the authors of tonight's Times piece, Mike Schmidt, joins us in a moment. He and his colleagues, Nick Fandos and Mark Mazzetti, report some of the investigators, quote, have told associates that Attorney General William Barr failed to adequately portray the findings of their inquiry and that they were more troubling for President Trump than Mr. Barr indicated. That's according to government officials and others familiar with their simmering frustrations. The special counsel's investigators had already written multiple summaries of the report, and some team members believe that Mr. Barr should have included more of their material in the 4-page letter he wrote on March 24th. The Times continues, quote, the officials and others interviewed declined to flesh out why some of the special counsel's investigators viewed their findings as potentially more damaging for the president than Mr. Barr explained, although the report is believed to examine Mr. Trump's efforts to thwart the investigation. Mr. Barr and his advisors have expressed their own frustrations about Mr. Mueller and his team. Mr. Barr and other Justice Department officials believe the special counsel's investigators fell short of their task by declining to decide whether Mr. Trump illegally obstructed the inquiry. Hours before this Times report, the House Judiciary Committee voted along party lines to authorize a subpoena to obtain the full, unedited Mueller report, as well as all the underlying documents. Attorney General Barr has said he intends to release a redacted version of the Mueller report later this month. Let's bring in our leadoff panel for a Wednesday night. On the phone, one of the New York Times reporters who broke this story, Mike Schmidt, Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington correspondent for the New York Times. Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, and Jeremy Bash, former Chief of Staff at the CIA and Pentagon. Mike Schmidt, we'll start with you. Take us through what you and your colleagues are reporting tonight.
Well, what we're reporting is about how there is some dissatisfaction amongst the Mueller team about the fact that Barr got a chance to really cast the die on how the narrative was going to be formed about their investigation. They felt that when the results were going to be out there, when there was going to be a pronouncement from the Justice Department, like Barr did right after they got the report, 48 hours, that there would have been some description of what they found, and that by allowing Barr going first and laying this out, it has sort of cemented the way that the public may look at what they found, and that they really want as much of this out there as possible because they think that Barr has made it appear better than what it really is. Remember, when Barr comes out and says, essentially clears the president of any wrongdoing, there is not a lot of detail in there about what the investigators found.
Mike Schmidt, what I want to ask is what was Barr thinking? But you guys detail some of what the view is from the Attorney General's viewpoint. Take us through that.
Well, there's frustration within the Justice Department with Mueller. There's a feeling that Mueller was there to do two things: investigate whether crimes happened and provide a confidential report to the Attorney General. That's it. That is all that the regulations called for in the minds of the Justice Department and what the regulations say. But on the question of obstruction, Mueller did not do that. He did not come to a determination. And that is really perplexing, obviously, to the public that doesn't yet understand why Mueller didn't get there, but also to Barr, because this has left Barr out there alone to make the call about whether the president broke the law. And he doesn't have the top cover of the investigator, the special counsel, who was supposed to be there to follow the facts in a politic-free way. That person has taken a pass on making a decision about whether criminality happened. And then it puts in the hands of Barr, who's a presidential appointee and was put there just a few months ago by the president. So there's a frustration in the sense that maybe the system here did not work as it was supposed to.
But the boom that's been lowered on Washington tonight in your report is that Mueller's investigators, who have been mute for 22 months. There has been little known of how they viewed anything. Were either incited or exasperated or something by what they saw. Let me show you what the president has said. He said something to say about the Barr report every day starting on March 24th. Let me play that.
It's complete exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction. The Mueller report was great. It could not have been better.
I will say this, our new Attorney General, Bill Barr, is a great gentleman.
Beautiful conclusion. I haven't seen the report. Beautiful conclusion. After 3 years of lies and smears and slander, the Russia hoax is finally dead. It's totally finished. No collusion, no obstruction.
I'm guessing that the Mueller investigators don't live in caves, and they saw some of that. Any sense that it was the president's exoneration victory lap that got to them?
No sense of what actually incited them to do this besides Barr's letter, which they felt was too meager and was too much of putting his hand down on what he thought was important without showing what they did. But you can't not understand where Mueller's folks may be coming from if they see the president out there saying things like that, talking about the beautiful Mueller report and such, and saying, well, maybe it's not as great as the public is making it out to be. Maybe there are things there that are problematic that the public should know about and that Congress should know about. I'm not saying that they're, the Justice Department would say, well, that's not really following the regulations here because they're just supposed to look at whether crimes happened, and we've determined no crimes happened. At the end of the day, I think there's only one real answer, which is we need to see the report. We need to see how big the delta is between what Barr said publicly, the impression that the public had, and what Mueller's findings actually are.
Frank Figliuzzi, you said on the 4 o'clock today that you were sure that the Mueller team, at the end of an investigation, because at the end of any investigation like this, summaries are created, that something existed that would have allowed Attorney General Barr to include more than sentence fragments. And at this moment, as we gather tonight at 11:09, there is still all that we have seen from the Mueller report are sentence fragments. I can imagine how those investigators who kept their mouths shut for 22 months while the investigation was ongoing have simmered over the last week or so.
Imagine this very large team from analysts to forensic accountants, cyber specialists, prosecutors, FBI agents, all remaining silent for 2 years, not so much as a raised eyebrow implying anything one way or the other.
Well, Trump attacked them.
While they were being undermined, attacked personally and professionally. And now we see for the first time dismay over how this narrative is being allowed to happen and play out. And it clearly conflicts with what they know. And so what we're being set up for here is either a very political attorney general decision and or a fundamental disagreement between the Attorney General and Mueller on what Mueller's mission was. So we're hearing through this reporting that the Attorney General saying, or allegedly is dismayed that Mueller didn't make the call, right? But if we're going to find out, perhaps through testimony on the Hill, that Mueller's intention all along was to let Congress make the call, then we've had a team playing by the rules, the Mueller team, and boy, they are law and order rule followers, right? And assuming that the Attorney General would play by those same rules, and he's got a different set of rules.
Joyce Vance, you, along with many other veterans of the Justice Department, have cautioned us to give Attorney General Barr the benefit of the doubt to see what he releases. It would seem that the Mueller investigators who expressed these frustrations in this report, at least, couldn't do that for any longer. What's your sense now on the die being cast, not just on the findings, but on William Barr's leadership of the Justice Department at this incredibly fraught moment?
It's a really difficult point. And you know, Nicole, I was maybe the outlier on this because during the confirmation proceedings, I actually wrote a piece for Slate and made the point that because Barr had come in under the cloud of this memo that he wrote, where he seemed to prejudge the issue of obstruction, saying a president couldn't commit obstruction, that it would be very difficult for the public to have confidence in decisions that he made down the road. And now we're seeing that problem come home to roost. We don't know if he's making principled decisions here. We don't know if he is, in fact, acting as a wingman for the president, but because he seemed to have prejudged the issues in an effort to get the job in the first place, it will be very difficult for the American people to have any appreciation for what's really going on here unless the Mueller report is really laid bare and we're given the opportunity to judge it for ourselves.
Jeremy Bash, take us through. We've been talking around and about the Mueller report. What is the obstruction report likely to look like? That is where, and I suppose in the Russian section as well. What kind of damaging information are we likely to see, even if it came short of, in the conspiracy case, being something you could charge in a criminal way, and on the obstruction case being serious enough that they wrote in "do not exonerate"? What might it look like?
Well, I think on the conspiracy side, Nicole, the predicate is all the activity launched by the Russian Federation to attack our election, all the effort that they made to reach out to the Trump campaign and to not offer their assistance and to engage the Trump campaign, but just to notify the Trump campaign that the Russian Federation was interfering in the election, and then to discuss, of course, what they would get in return, what reward they would reap in terms of Magnitsky Act sanctions relief and other things that we saw the Trump administration reward them with. And with regards to obstruction, Nicole, I think it's not only what we've seen in public by the president, but potentially other things. Remember, the White House counsel, Don McGahn, sat for tens of hours with the special counsel's office detailing what the White House, what the president did to try to undermine the Mueller investigation and his team. And so I think we're going to see a heap of evidence that is really damning about the president's conduct. It's going to appear shameful, unpatriotic, potentially unethical. Whether it crosses the line of illegality, I think that's going to be obviously in the eye of the beholder. Mueller said no. But again, I think Bill Barr's his summary here yielded this inevitable result where you're going to see a lot of dissent and a lot of concern about whether or not he accurately reflected the holdings of the Mueller findings.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.